That's
Right.
what we tell coaches, like, hey, coach the person, not the player. You spend way too much time coaching the player.
Mm.
I don't have time coaching the person. Ultimately, it's people that execute anything, whatever your offensive system is, your defensive system, what is people that are executing it.
Right.
So you're not coaching people. You're just coaching the players, man. You're losing out on a whole lot.
Welcome to Podcast on Wheels. I'm your host, Brian Smith, and today we've got one of my new friends. I've known him for a while, but Spencer Palmer, he's a coach, a husband, and a father who has spent his life developing people and not just players. He's played and coached college basketball. He's now a team program director with Season Builder, where they help coaches build values based on cultures that are forming characters that last beyond the season. Spencer, before we talk culture systems, I want people to know a little bit about your story. Just walk us through your journey from coaching basketball to ministry and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So one of the weird people that actually from Madison, Alabama. So that's unique. So most people move here from all over across the country and they do engineering, rocket scientists, or some kind of government contracting. So my claim to fame is I am one of the dumbest people from Huntsville, Alabama, because everyone's so smart here. But yes, I grew up here. Amazing just to see what our city's become. Got into basketball, got into sports. My whole life was about sports at a young age. Had the opportunity to play college basketball, and then just stepped right into coaching from there. So, yeah, sports was my life. And then got in a really bad car accident we may touch on a little later, kind of awakening moment for me, and coached for a few more years. We went through that crazy thing called COVID. So I say BC before COVID, and then AC after COVID. It seems like two different worlds. But in 2021, decided to really, and God had been pulling at me for a long time, and decided to step away from coaching on the court, basketball, and really more developing, start coaching people. And so we started a nonprofit in 2021 and been doing that ever since. Had a brief stint where I actually stepped on staff at a church for a little bit, stayed involved with the nonprofit, but now back full time. So coaching coaches, which I love, coaching leaders, a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you and I have a very similar background. We played sports. That was kind of our life. It took us down a little bit of path that may have not been exactly where we wanted to go. And now God's kind of, I say smack me, you know what I mean? He had to smack me, and literally you rolled and did a lot of things. But today, you're a dad. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So, met my wife in 2021. So met my wife AC after COVID, which if I met my wife BC before COVID, she would not be my wife. There's I put a lot of testimony there to my testimony. So yeah, became a dad in 2023. So we got Carter, who was our little boy, who just turned 3. And then Margaret, she's a year and a half old. And I'll say, from becoming a dad, it's taught me so much just about, really God and his love for his kids. Right now my little boy is 3 and, he thinks that daddy can do anything. And then very quickly, and he's already started to figure out even at 3 that daddy can't. But there's something sweet to it. There's no problem that he's encountered at this point in his life that daddy can't fix. And I was just thinking the other day that at some point for Carter, my boy, logic and reason and some experience is going to start to develop in his mind of, okay, dad can't do everything. But how we approach God that way too. Man, when we're young in the faith, and I remember, when God first really, stepped into my life and really pulled me out, man, I'm on fire, telling about Jesus, like there's nothing God can't do. But then over time, logic, experience, I don't really know if I believe Ephesians 3:20 anymore. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we think, ask, or imagine, because I start to use logic and perspective in my experience and I put that on God. But I just, in raising kids, man, that childlike wonder that the Bible talks about, I'm just learning how to approach God from that place.
We could do a whole show on that, brother, because I've experienced it. My 10-year-old did something the other day, and I'm like, where did you learn that? And he's like, I was just talking to God, and and blown away. As you see, as you're coaching with this Season Builders, and your reach stretches all over the Southeast, right? I mean, you've got coaches and friends and people you talk to. How many times do you see yourself when you go talk to a team or another coach, and does that happen often?
So here's the thing. And so I was involved in college athletics for 10 years and we won 6 championships.
Okay.
And what I tell everybody is it was all because of me. And then everybody usually laughs because I played basketball and I'm a little white guy. So they know it was not because of me,
Right.
But I'll tell them, for when I was playing, man, I really didn't give my best. No, I really didn't. And that's regret. You have to live with that. And as a coach, especially a young coach, I was trying to pull, and I was pulling from a few different influences. And just, I thought I had to be a certain way. And I tell everybody, we were successful despite my attitude, despite the way, even though I was very negative, naturally very negative, pessimistic, which in some arenas of life, maybe that's worked out for me a little bit. But I had to have that look in the mirror moment and say, we're not successful because of my attitude. We're actually successful despite my attitude. And so those last 2 years in coaching, we won 2 championships and I completely flipped. And here's the thing, if anybody's ever won a game before or won a championship, that feeling lasts about 24 hours. And then it's gone, man. and that's what I see coaches. I see, man, you're chasing the wrong thing. And I tell them, I'm like, hey, we won 6 championships in 10 years and you have no idea my name. You have no idea who I played for, and you didn't care.
Right.
And so if that's what it's going to be about, man, you're going to be miserable. But I'll tell you, those last 2 years, God really flipped my life upside down. And I started impacting people. And now I get invited to do their weddings. I get invited to attend their weddings. I'm watching them get married. I'm watching them have kids. Those are the wins that never end.
Yeah.
Billy Graham said a coach will impact more people in a year than most people in an entire life. And so a conservative estimate of how many people that is about 120,000 people. That over a career of a coach, that's how many individual people they'll impact. So for perspective, we're in Alabama. Just picture yourself on the 50-yard line at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it's full.
Wow.
And that's about 105,000 people. Yeah. So even a little more. The picture, each individual seat is filled with people that you impacted. And what we tell people is that stadium going to be cheering and booing at the end of your career. And we want to walk alongside you. And so when you're done, man, you're going to win some championships. Sure, that's going to be great. And you're going to leave a legacy. And that stadium is going to be cheering.
Yeah.
And so, man, when I encounter coaches and I see them caught up in the rat race, the NIL, we talked about this the other day, name, image, and likeness. And I have no problem with kids getting paid. That's way above my pay grade. What happens there.
Sure.
But a guy told me this the other day. If you really think about it, name, image, and likeness, how almost demonic that is. And how our whole world is about our name, our image, and our likeness. But as believers, we're created in his name. He is the name that is above every name. So it's all about his name. And we're created in his image and likeness. So think of NIL, his name, his image, and his likeness. And that guy pointed out to me, I was like, man, it's just kind of mind blowing how we're so obsessed and so self-centered. But when you help coaches become others focused and other-centered, man, it really helps our programs and our teams take off. And we say, if you'll help these kids invest in their life off the field and really care about them, really, because kids really want 2 things. Everybody wants 2 things: to be loved and held accountable. If you'll do those 2 things, you'll win championships.
Yeah.
You just will.
Yeah.
The most connected teams, the most committed teams, they win.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, that's phenomenal, because putting things in perspective, I think, is what you guys do. I've never thought about being in a football stadium and thinking about, and when you were saying that, I started thinking about some of the guys that I coached, and now their families and their kids. And, as an older coach, you look back now, but the things that I've enjoyed the most in talking to former players, seeing them maybe reach out to me when they're struggling later in life and saying something you said. I had a guy, he's now, we're going to say he's 30, whatever age, but I used to give out lineup cards. At the end of the game, I didn't give out a game ball. I gave out whoever had the best day. Now, you might have come in and stole a base and helped us win the game or something. It might not have been the guy that went 3 for 3 with 3 home runs, whatever. But this kid said, yeah, I would date it. And then everybody on the team would sign it, or at least the guys who were nice enough to stay around. But this kid kept that piece of paper. He said, Coach, I was struggling with alcohol. I was struggling with some things. And I looked back and I said, if I could play for that guy and I could live up to what he held me accountable for, I can beat this. And I still talk to his mom, and his dad sent me a message. He said, I'm not crying, you're crying, when he watched the show. It's like, how many of those guys are you helping not get into what you did or I did or this guy? That's what I see this group doing, right?
Yeah. So we really have 2 arms of what we do. So my role is I invest in the coaches who then, they're with the kids every day. Taylor, on the other hand, he does one-on-one discipleship with college athletes and professional athletes. So he's really stepping in and meeting us a 12-week framework that we've written, that we take people through, that Taylor takes people through. And then I'm helping the coach instill values, instill culture to really impact those kids. Because, Coach Acuff is, he was my college coach. I worked for him for a couple of years. And I'm one of those people like you were just talking about, my kids are directly impacted from his influence in my life. So you may not be a coach of a team or college coach or whatever, but you're a leader. At the very least, you're leading yourself. So you're going to impact people.
Yep.
So just think about the legacy that you're going to leave. But we try and help coaches just coach with that long-term perspective.
Yeah.
Because we just live in a microwave society. We really want things now. I mean, culture is becoming more and more important as all this NIL stuff is affecting how people are moving around. It's even trickling down into high school.
Yeah.
But still, kids want to be loved.
Yeah.
And again, they will actually they've proven this just in the workforce, that people will take less money. If they'll work for a company where they feel loved and they feel valued, they'll take a little less money. And same thing is true with kids, man. Like, you're losing all these kids. If you had great culture, if you really loved and valued your kids and held them accountable, I can't promise you everyone would stay, but a lot of them would. And here's the trick. You'll find people moving in. I don't know anybody that moves into Florida culture.
Facts.
I don't.
Facts.
But why do you think everybody wants to go to Indiana all of a sudden?
Yeah.
They have great culture.
Yeah.
Do they win? Absolutely.
Right.
But they got great culture.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to be attractive. Like, don't try and go attract the world and all but just become so attractive where you're at. Coach Jacob used to always say this: make the big time where you're at. The big time's where you're at. And so if you'll build that culture, you'll start helping kids off the field and it'll translate on the field. You'll start winning. I promise you'll become really attractive.
Gotcha. And you taught me something the other day when we were talking about character coaches. Some places can afford that. Some places can't. So the way I take it, please correct me and help everybody that's watching understand, you guys can step in and fill that void for programs, right? Like, if they don't have the budget to afford I don't know what they pay coaches these days. I know what they used to pay us, and it was not enough to go eat food after practice, but it was, hey, you could eat over here in the lunchroom and eat leftovers. But the lifestyle and being able to fill that void that they can't afford it. So is that kind of what you guys do? You step in to teach, help?
Yeah, in a roundabout way. And I'll make this joke first. I remember, when I started going to church, the Highlands, they started talking about fasting. So I haven't fasted for a long time. I've been poor. I just called that being poor.
Right.
When I was a coach. I mean, literally, my first job is not a joke. It was $8,500.
That's more than I ever made as a coach. That's more than I ever made.
You
I
get
feel it.
I mean, for people like a month, no, a year.
Yes.
It's
yes.
I fasted a lot.
Yeah.
As a coach, not for spiritual reasons, just being poor. Anyway, so yeah, Tommy Connell leads an organization called Nation of Coaches.
Right.
A phenomenal organization, and they have character coaches, some paid, some volunteers, all across the country.
Right.
And we really step in because we kind of a little bit of a similar model with what Taylor does, but we more so meet one-on-one with the kids to kind of fill that void. Because like UAH basketball, for example, they have a character coach. His name's John Ryberg, incredible guy. And he'll meet with some of the players too, but he's one guy.
Right.
And so Taylor's meeting with basketball players, softball players, volleyball players, soccer players, a lot of different players, and really just stepping into their life.
Right.
Is it the end all be all if you go through this, like your life's just going to be awesome? No, but what we hope we can do is we can stop the drift. And so what we tell people is no one ever knows they're drifting. You remember being a kid going playing out in the ocean, and all of a sudden you look up and mom and dad are way down there and you drifted.
Yeah.
You didn't feel it happen.
Right.
The same is true in life. And that's what happened with me. All of a sudden you go out to the ocean as a kid, you go out to life, and man, you start drifting. And then you wake up one day like, I'm a long way from home.
Yeah.
And what we like to say is we help kids come alongside young adults, young kids, athletes, and help make them walk back to the tent. You need a partner in life, man. You need someone that's going to be in your corner, cheering for you, encouraging you, helping you, loving you, and holding you accountable.
Yeah.
And then kind of the same with coaches. So yeah.
Given the, I don't want to downplay being an athlete, but last night we had a gala at church. I learned what that meant last night. So, we're listening, and it's like, being in middle school was hard. It was kind of a joke that the guy did. And then he said, no, being a parent of a middle schooler. So when you guys, though, you reach those coaches and you do talk to the athletes and you help them. But I remember as a coach, and even an assistant coach or running a program or different things, it was hard for me to find somebody that I maybe could pick up the phone and call and maybe just vent or talk about, hey, I'm struggling with this myself. We did something with our travel teams from day one that Sundays have always been important to me in church. I grew up in church. And so we had what was called Cage Chapel. All right. Sometimes it was 10 minutes. Sometimes we didn't take batting practice that day. And I can go back to, as I look back at the teams that I really enjoyed coaching. Now, granted, it's my fault. I was a leader, but let's say one year we had 5 different baseball teams, age groups. There was one group, and if you guys are watching, you know which team I'm talking about. I wouldn't really have to show up. Like, I remember going to the field one day, going to talk to some college coaches about some of the guys. They went out and got ready. They got warmed up. They took their BP. And I was like, okay, do y'all have a lineup made? Like, do you need me today? Or like that culture within that group. That group had a cage chapel one day at Auburn outside the baseball field at Auburn. There's an underneath batting cage. We were sitting in there. One of the guys, his uncle had died the day before, heart attack, boom. That next morning, we had a couple guys come to Christ based off of it can happen that quick. And I just sat back. And then I got out of the cage and I stepped back. I implemented that culture in a way, but I didn't have a 12-week system. I didn't have somebody who had coached. You've played, you've coached, you've lived the life. You know the day-to-day, the fasting that you're forced to do, the drills, the effort, and you spend so much time doing that. What are some of the things in that you've seen coaches like, or maybe they're sitting here watching the show and they're like, well, I don't know if I could get Spencer to come over next week, but what's something I could implement right now for my team?
Yeah, so we call it the 4 V's, and we work mainly with high school coaches. We do some college too, but man, high school coaches are most of the time teachers, also, husbands, dads. They got a whole life going on, grading papers, doing all these things. Now, most of them teach history, which is why we know nothing about history. But you get it. They still got all these things going on. And so they feel like, they're just trying to keep their head above water. And what they feel like is most important is scheme, offense, defense, whatever sport they're coaching, like that. They feel like that system is the most important part. And I'm not saying it's not important. It certainly is, but I always tell them like, hey, you do realize that every year, let's just use basketball game. Every year whoever wins a national champion runs a different offense. Every year whoever wins a national champion runs a different defense. It's not that. Now, you got to believe in what you do. You got to be good at what you do. I'm not saying that's not important, but culture is really the things that makes it all work. Culture is really a current. And when that current's good, man, it just flows. When it's bad, man, it gets sticky and it ain't much good. But what we say, man, we call it the 4 V's. Yeah. So if you could just start with this, that would be great. Vision, values, voice, and vehicle. I'll explain those just a little bit. Vision is pretty self-explanatory, but the vision is just what do you want your program to be about? So at Athens, we work with Athens football, but it's tough people win. Like, that's their vision. That's what they want to be about. And then you got to have 3 to 4 to 5 values that what do you think will produce that vision? Because really the values drive the vision. So it's a hardworking, discipline, humility, together. And it's great to have those words. And if you got those words, awesome. But here's the real trick. Let's just say you got a basketball team with 15 to 20 guys and you want discipline to be a value. Well, have you defined it? And not talking about like Webster's dictionary, it doesn't have to be like that, but do they know what discipline means? Because if you don't define it, but they're going to, and now you got 15 to 20 different definitions. This one, we're not doing any good there.
Right.
So you got to define it. And then the voice, and this is really the most important part that just a lot of people leave out, but it's just a self-talk. Man, we listen to ourselves way too much. We don't talk to ourselves enough. You got to talk to yourself. So what you speak has authority over what you think. So if you're driving a car, don't do this. But if you're just listening to this, just in your mind right now, count to 20. Just silently go ahead and start counting. Right now, say your name out loud. Okay, you just said your name out loud and you stopped counting. So what you speak has authority over what you think. And so we help coaches create a language, a common voice that they're going to say when they encounter adversity, when they encounter tough situations, when they encounter setbacks, and also when things are going really well. Coach Krzyzewski said this, famous coach at Duke, and Nick Saban said this too, but the toughest opponent he ever faced at Alabama was not Auburn, was not Clemson, it was human nature. Human nature is the toughest opponent. So when things are going well, you actually got to really emphasize this voice thing. Mm-hmm. But the voice, we say, is just mindsets you're going to adopt. That when you don't feel like it, man, this becomes your language. Mm-hmm. And then the last is the vehicle, and that's the action. So that's the reps. So what are you going to do to rep your culture? We all know the importance of getting reps up in the weight room, especially and you're one of those guys like, hey, you did it, man. Did you can stop working out. Leave some of the weights for those little guys. But you got to rep it. There's a difference between repping it and just getting shots up in basketball. We say like a rep is relentless execution with focus. Steph Curry is not the best shooter in the world because he gets up in those shots. Got a ton of God-given talent, obviously, starting at a different point than most of us. But he's the best shooter in the world because he gets up in those reps. And we know the importance of that and everything else, but it's like culture, we don't ever rep it. Yeah. So when we say a season builder is the 2 and the 22. Yeah. You got to win in the 22. You got to win in culture in the 22. You got to rep culture in the 22. So we help coaches come up with actions to start repping culture in the 22. So something that I love to do is I love to walk into a locker room and say I'm speaking to a team. I'll get there early because I'm coach. So you got to be there early,
course.
which my wife hates. You got to be there early, 30 minutes early. But I'll drop a piece of trash
Mm-hmm.
in the locker room
Mm-hmm.
before the players come in.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll watch kids walk by it. And then maybe a coach will get it, maybe Joe will get it, maybe nobody will get it. But you'll say, hey, you want to stay on sides on 4th and 4 and Friday night, and it's a game to go to the state championship? That's a little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So is picking up trash. You can't pick up trash here in the locker room and do a little thing. How in the world do you think everybody's watching and you got to stay on sides? Like your butt's got to be on sides.
Yeah.
How do you think you're going to stay on sides?
Yeah.
If you're not training it, because you are a summation of your habits, so we help kids become disciplined, humble together, wherever the coach's values are off the field. So they'll be that on the field.
Yeah.
So I know that's a lot, but if you can just kind of get clear with your vision, your values, your voice and your vehicle, especially voice and vehicle may not make too much sense to you. But if you can just get clear with the voice, your vision and your values, and then, man, I promise you that's a great start.
Yeah. Well, and you put it in order for them.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're not going to see the vehicle until they have the vision. So this is something that, I'm shooting in the yard with my 8-year-old the other day. And sometimes as an 8-year-old and sometimes as a dad, we just go out there and fire the ball up from behind the goal over here, whatever. But he has a routine that he does every day. 2 layups on the left, 2 layups on the right, 2 layups on the left. He has to make a pull up, some free throws, and then he'll shoot a couple threes. And he has that routine. The other day, he was missing his free throws. And we talked about Steph Curry, and I'd heard a story, may or may not be true, that he had to swish 5, not hit the rim every day at the end of practice. Okay, well, that probably took a while, right? But I told him, I said, I played high school baseball at a very good program, and we won, and we were competitive. And the culture was, I can just remember winning. You know what I mean? That was the culture.
Yeah.
If you talk about Hartselle baseball, it's like they win. They won a state last year. Then I got to college, and where I went to college, that coach, he was more of a drill sergeant than a preacher, per se. That happened that way. But then I got to pro ball, and I go out one day, and I'm a catcher, but I would always take ground balls because, catchers may have to go in at third or first, or just in pro ball, sometimes guys get hurt and they're like, hey, go play an inning over here. And you got to be able to go do it, right? Like you could move around on the basketball court and play any position for a couple minutes if you had to.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm out there taking ground balls and I am just getting beat up, and I'm taking hit me another one, hit me another one, hit me another one. And a guy who had made it to a higher level, he was with the Red Sox, he came over to me and he goes, how many ground balls have you taken? I said, I'm going to get 100. And he goes, why? He said, I would rather you get 10 good reps and use those 4 V's in your daily reps, right? Like 10 quality reps. And that's what I'm hearing you say. It's not about how many, it's about what it's focused on, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily about the quantity, but the quality.
Right.
And so, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah.
So how do you put that in when you're going out to talk to these coaches and you get the 4 V's and now they're rolling with you and the season comes along? And let's say we were using football there at Athens. Let's say, and forgive me, I don't know y'all's record last year. I apologize for that. But let's say that they go in and now they're 2-2 in 4 games. And they're like, this culture stuff ain't working. Have you experienced that? Has Taylor experienced that in a way? And now it's how do y'all handle those kind of coaches? Because I know what kind of coach I was. So if it ain't working, let's get that crap out of here. We got to go to work. We got to win, because if I don't win, I'm losing my job. But it's so much bigger than that, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I'm usually not this harsh, but we say, I'm doing everything right and it's not working. You're not doing everything right.
Amen.
I don't know. I can't name one coach
Amen.
that is doing all this stuff right and it doesn't work. Now, I don't know Dabo, but I used to. Clemson had a down year. Okay. And everybody's like, oh, and Dabo, all this stuff. Man, look at the summation of his career.
Yeah.
Any coach in the country would take what he's been able to do.
Right.
Anybody. And so I'm saying you may have a bad year, so to speak.
Yeah.
Those are going to happen, but it's over the course of time. And I don't know anybody who's doing this right that it doesn't work. I just don't. And so that's kind of how we handle that. And I'll go back to the very beginning. That's why I started off with that story about my kid. I was telling a coach the other day, I won't say his name, but man, I love him. And he's in his 50s. I'm in my 30s, but he's just really, he's got a ton of humility. And he just allows me to speak into his life. And it's very humbling for me. Like, I can't teach you anything, and this, man, coaches and pastors are some of the most loneliest people in the world, because everybody wants something from them all the time. They don't have many places where they can just vent. So he's venting. And I said, man, you can't go and you can do it if you want, but you can't go into that locker room and say, hey, let's just say Hartselle, because you were at Hartselle. Hey guys, we can beat Hartselle. And then you go in the coach's room and say, we got no chance. You can't do that. I said, you got to believe. I said, man, you should be at the prime of your career. You're in your 50s, and now you've got all this experience to learn from, like all this wisdom, man. But what you've lost You've lost the childlike wonder of your 20s and 30s when you were a coach,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter who you were playing, you were going to win.
Yeah.
But now that logic and that reason and that like now you're coaching more through that. You've lost the childlike wonder of a coach, man. And that was in Coach A Cup. It didn't matter who we were playing. We thought we were going to win. We went to overtime at Alabama. We went to overtime at Vanderbilt. We were a little D2 school at UAH, and we thought we were going to win.
Yeah.
We were disappointed because we lost.
Yeah.
Coach A Cup, he was happy because they paid his money.
Well, yeah, I've been there too as a
Yeah,
coach.
yeah,
I've gotten paid to take a long.
Exactly. But we had this belief.
Right.
And I like to use this example. I'm not picking on Auburn, but it's just true. Like they lost, I think, every game by less than 10 points this year because, and you can feel it even up here in Huntsville. Like my friends that are Auburn fans, they were just waiting for something to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's belief. Leadership's just a transfer of belief. Mark Lee has transferred belief and injected belief into Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
He got there that first year, they're 2-10, but he's still saying, hey, man, we can win at Vandy. Next year, they go 7-6. They beat Bama, start to raise some eyebrows. This year, they're 10-3.
Yeah.
But that belief never changed. When he was 2-10, he didn't let his circumstances, his logic, his reason get in the way of his belief and his vision. And that's what we talk about. I mean, you may start off 2-2, but are you going to be that fickle?
Yeah.
Is that really going to shake your beliefs?
Yeah.
Because if it does, I mean, your team is going to feel it.
Yeah.
They've actually studied that you can feel each other's energy up to 10 feet away on a cellular level.
Yeah.
So, and we all know this to be true. If someone walks into the room with horrible anxiety, it totally changes the atmosphere. So as a coach, if you walk into the players' room or the locker room or whatever, and you've got that negative energy, if you're lacking belief, you may be communicating with your words something different, but man, they feel that energy.
Yep.
They feel it. So you've got to believe it first.
Yeah.
And that's what, I mean, we love coming alongside coaches, man, get that belief back.
Mm-hmm.
Get that childlike wonder back. Like, yeah, I know every team's got a ceiling talent gap. I get it. Like there's a ceiling. I totally understand it. But your job as a coach is to maximize the potential of that team. And it's never going to happen unless you believe.
Yeah.
And you got to believe it.
You know, I haven't thought about this in years, and a guy that we both know in Ren Aaron, and he was my baseball, and he did coach me in basketball, like junior high. And I remember a game, and before the game, he told us, he said, on paper, guys, on paper, we don't have a chance here, but I believe you can do it. I don't think we won the game, you know, because those guys could just stand up and get the ball. I couldn't jump and get, but it was like the belief that he had in us. And I can go back to he was one of the influences that got me into pro baseball. It was like, he believed in me.
Yep.
Right. And to this day, we're still in contact, and I sometimes I am a little more harsh, I guess I say, but anybody that says, hey, I'm having a terrible season, we're 2-2 or we're 4-4, we're this and this. It's like, have you ever read your Bible? Mm-hmm. Do you know what real persecution? Do you know what really being tested means? Because this might be God's way of putting you where you really need to be. This might not be the program for you. Right. And as coaches, when coaches are in transition or they're looking for jobs, the network that Season Builder and the other groups, like if you're in with those people, really and truthfully, even from a personal standpoint, right, you're going to have somewhere to go. You're going to have an opportunity that comes up, because if you stay true to those 4 V's and you're doing everything right, it's not really about wins and losses, is it?
No, and you're exactly right. And that's what, especially with the vision and the values, that's why we tell coaches, man, that's so important, because that will tell you, you can't pick your players, but you can pick your coaches. And if you're clear with your vision and your values, you sit across the table from the coach who's want to interview. If that doesn't line up, don't hire them. And then the same thing as an assistant. Like, don't go somewhere that you don't believe in. I tell people with church, like, if you don't believe in the vision of the church, don't go there.
Yes.
Go somewhere where you're attracted to the vision, you believe in the vision, you believe in the mission, and you believe in what they value. And then, man, you will have the time of your life.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, if you're so concerned, it's like Saban says all the time, man, wins and losses, that's what average people get so concerned with.
Yeah.
Average people worry about execution. Good people, great leaders worry about execute or preparation. So you got average people worry about execution, great leaders worry about preparation, but elite, the Nick Sabans of the world, the Kobe Bryants of the world, they're obsessed with review and learning. So you prepare, you execute, and then you review. And man, so many coaches miss that. And so what we've actually done, so we deliver all of this content in an app for coaches. Parents get access to it as well.
Yep.
But there's something we learned. She was a former U.S. women's national soccer coach, so she kind of knows what she's doing. Yeah. She talked about this term called periodization.
Okay.
So we have come up with basically a periodization plan for coaches. So what does culture look like in the off season?
Yes.
What's it look like postseason? What's it look like in season? What's it look like preseason? Because you can't know. Did you ever play football?
A little bit.
So you football guys
Yeah.
are crazy.
Yeah, they are different.
You know, the little max squat and bench like week 8 of the season. What are y'all doing? So, but like with culture,
I wanted my name on the wall. It's
yeah,
out
they didn't
there.
care if they want to. I'm a like great.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
1,200 to be no, I don't remember. I don't remember.
What that would be. I'm in a 120-pound club. But yeah, so you've got the problem with culture is we think we've got to emphasize it at the same level all the time. We just don't. You can't.
Right.
You know, so when you're in the season, that's not the time to take and sit around and sing Kumbaya for 4 hours. That's not the time.
Right.
It's not the time to do a ton of team building, but there is a time for it.
Right.
But there is also in season, you still have to be doing culture things. So, we say like this with God, like people, we're such big list people, like God's first, family second, all that stuff. That's just great.
Yeah.
But instead of viewing it like that, view God's a piece of paper you write.
Come on now.
He's in everything.
Yes.
It's the same with culture. Like, don't
Yes.
put, hey, we got practice, we got weights, and we got practice, and we got offense, do whatever. Culture is the paper that you write your practice plan on.
Yes.
It is in everything. It is everything.
Mhm.
And everything they're saying, everything they're doing is culture. So some people say, man, I don't think we got it. Well, you got it.
Mhm.
It's probably pretty bad.
Yes.
You have culture. There is a
Do.
culture. And it's really hard to be really tangible with it and really measure it. But you can walk into an environment. Like, why do people go to Chick-fil-A? Honestly, no offense, Chick-fil-A, but the food's not that good. It's just okay. But I go all the time. I'll go there with every fast food restaurant because the culture. There's an environment that when you walk in, it's clean. People are excited. It's my pleasure. Like there's a culture there.
Right.
You can't really put your finger on it, but you can feel it.
Yeah.
Same thing when you walk into a team environment with a coach, a basketball team, a football team, a softball team, whatever. You feel it.
Mhm.
And so we say, like, what do you want people to feel when they walk into your practice, when they come and watch you
Yeah.
play a game? Like that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Your culture.
I mean, the story I'm used a few minutes ago with Ren Aaron, and like I said, I don't remember if we won that game, but I remember how he made me feel.
Mhm.
I remember the tone that he set. I remember, I remember building a baseball field. I remember working with guys. I tell my kids all the time, I can remember if we won a championship, sure, because it's an end record. But really and truthfully, if you ask me how many home runs I hit this year, that year, or did we beat this team or that team, 20 years later, I don't know. I really don't know. And then those guys that are like, well, I don't remember. I look at them and I say, okay, who won the college baseball World Series 5 years ago? Who won it?
I'm just going to guess LSU because
Let me look
it's a
up,
win.
right? Like, yeah, let me look up. And I'm like, no, that's kind of the point here. It's what's happening down the line because life happens for every one of these athletes. I mean, you mentioned Kobe, you mentioned Krzyzewski. Krzyzewski stayed in the game forever because I just see him as it's this and this is how it is and this is what. But a thing I learned from him with the guy, Mark Noble, that we've discussed, we were sitting around talking. Now, granted, I feel bad for saying this out loud, especially on the show at early 30s. I'm sitting there with Mark Noble and he said, well, our conditioning program has to build to March, the season. What season are we in? Because in baseball, it's like we used to try to get as big and strong as we could in the fall so that as a catcher, I didn't get too weak by the end of the year. You know what I mean? It was just like, how strong can I get? Because I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year, water weight, et cetera. And I'm going to be weak at the end, but understanding that culture is there every single day. What's something that a coach could do right now? Because a lot of businessmen, athletes, preachers, all of the above, and I know they have their routine in the morning to get their self right. Do you guys talk to the coaches about like what to do to prepare yourself? Because, hey, I've talked to coaches and I've been in this situation. I can remember getting ejected out of a ball game because the umpire missed the call. It was one of those things where it was the right time to get the energy up for the team. You know what I'm saying? As a coach, I wasn't upset. And I went out and I looked at the umpire. I said, you're going to have to throw me out. You're going to have to throw me out. And he's like, I'm not going to throw you. Well, that was a terrible call. He said, no, say it personal. And I'm like, you're terrible. He said, you're out of here. So I leave. The team gets fired up. Those kids that played for me that year, they just remembered that I cared about them. But the next week, if Courtney was mad at me because I'm Brian'd something, I say it sometimes, and then I'm like, shucks. And now I got to go in front of these kids and they listen and they're observant and that 10-foot of energy and those things. What could a coach do daily? Or if he wanted to start like, hey, let's say they're in the basketball season and they're 0-10 right now. What can he do tomorrow? What's one thing he can start with?
If you're on 10, just pray.
Pray
That the season's going to end soon.
Pray that it'll be over quick.
Yeah, and we'll restart next year.
Okay.
But we tell you, you can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
And so a lot of coaches will say this, like, we want our guys to play free. We want our girls to play free. My man, if you're not free off the court, off the field, you can't play free on the
I
court.
like
You
that.
just can't.
You
You-
know,
I lived it. Out partying the night before, then you're at practice or a game, that you're not free.
right?
Now, they'll always like, man, he can get away with it. Sure. There's some exceptions to every rule, but he's getting away with it, or she's getting away with it. Still not at her best.
It'll catch up.
That's going to John Morant at Memphis Grizzlies. His talent has been able to outrun his character for a really long time.
Yeah.
Now it's all catching up to him.
Yeah.
It will catch up to you.
Yeah.
And so with a coach, we say, man, you got to take care of yourself first. So a lot of people say, it's we over me. And I get that. And yes, that is true. But there's something that Doug Novak taught us a long time ago. It's actually me first for we. So it's on me to get shots up. It's on me to get the workouts in. It's on me to get the extra reps, because when I'm a better me, we're a better we. Same thing as a coach, man, you've got to take care of yourself. So if you're in an argument with your wife on the way to practice,
Right.
if you don't think that's affecting how you're going to coach, it absolutely is. Not that you're not going to get in old tiffs and have bad days.
Sure.
It's all going to happen. But you've got to be disciplined enough to take care of yourself. Like, go on some coaches retreats, go get, we're doing a call the first of every month for coaches that we work with, just to build community. Get somebody in your life, especially, for men. I'll speak with the men. Women tend to do a little better than this, but man, get 3 or 4 men in your life, go eat with them, get on a call once a month, and just talk, man. Just share where you're at. Like, you've got to be able to vent. You've got to be able to get these things out, and you've got to be able to take care of yourself. I think you don't really know, and you know this from being a workout guy and a health guy, I think a lot of people don't know they feel bad because they've forgotten what good feels like.
Wow.
I think there's a lot of coaches, man, that they don't even know they're not healthy. They don't even know they're really not transferring belief, because they've forgotten what it was like to feel good. They've forgotten what it was like to be that kind of childlike wonder coach, because you've gotten so used to feeling bad. What we say is, man, sickness, it's really, really hard to detect early, but easy to treat. Very easy. Stage 5 cancer, I could just look at you and I'm not a doctor, like, man, you're sick. But now it's really hard to treat.
Yeah.
So like with culture, or even your personal health and how you're approaching every day as a coach, it starts off, it's hard to detect early. If you get some people in your life, that can, I told you this the other day, man, Coach Acuff said, it's not our job to pick kids up when they fall. It's our job to notice when they start to fall and not let them hit the ground.
Yes.
So as a coach, who is doing that in your life?
Yes.
You got to have some guys, like you would be great for so many coaches. And that's what we do at Season Builder. Yeah, we help them with culture and stuff, but we want to walk alongside with them for an extended period of time to be that for them, because they need that.
And, help me out here. I've had a lot of conversations this past week, but there was one other guy that we've talked about before the show, and he talked about being in the dark versus the light and bringing it out front and being open and sharing. Because for guys, I mean, real quick, sometimes it's hard for me to say what I do wrong, but, there's been times that I would open my phone. And I was talking to one of my best friends about this the other day. Ready? I'd open my phone and I'd go to Instagram and I'd hit this button right here. So right now we see some worship music. We see something about a lion that's going to be funny. And now we got Forrest Frank and this guy singing and something. But yeah, Jesus is going to be, it's a Jesus thing with the lion. But what you put in and what you're doing as a coach, like, are you going and who are you going to? Because a lot of us will go there, right?
Yeah.
And we'll go there. Having those men, because I know I've always wanted to win, right? The acronym I use for win is what's important now. And that's how we can get there. At the same time, having those people. If I hadn't got reconnected with some of my coaches or mainstayed those relationships, or maybe learned from their mistakes, and then them being somewhat vulnerable to be open and honest. As a coach, I'm not telling you to go in there and start crying in front of your team and telling them all your sins and everything. There's a season and a person for that. But being able to know that other people have been here before. I think that's a thing that guys and coaches and men miss, And again, women are better at this. Thank God for women, that they're amazing creatures. I love mine. And it's like, but how do you help those guys open up? Because a lot of coaches sometimes are hard to crack. Because you may not be able to do it, but a coach you're working with is going to call his buddy, because he's going to go, hey, I know Johnny needs this. And I'm not referring to any coach specific, but you know what I'm saying? Like, what's something to encourage them to be open? How do you do that?
Yeah, I'll share just real quick my story with them.
Okay.
I'll tell, man, in 2019, November 5th, I got in a horrible drinking and driving accident, flipped my car 10 times, broke my neck. My leg was shattered into a million pieces and cracked my ribs. And I was a mess, man. An absolute mess. I was horrible anxiety, was addicted to pornography, was drinking all the time. was just a mess.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking for God on Tuesday, November 5th of 2019, but he's pursuing you and he's pursuing everyone who's listening to this.
Yep.
Revelation says he's standing at the door of your heart and he's knocking.
Amen.
I don't know about this. I don't know about what your door looks like, but I do know mine. In order to knock on someone's door, you got to be close. He's close, and so I'll open up and share them a little bit of my story. I'll say, hey, this is what it looks like, man. And the first time I shared it was not easy.
Yeah.
But now over time, I've seen how God's been able to use the grace that he has, exhibited in my life and given me in my life. He's been able to use that to help other men to open up. We say this at Highlands, the small group thing, but really like a friendship is born. We say, oh, me too. I got to know me too, man.
Yep.
And back when I was really struggling with anxiety, back in, really 2011, for about a decade, I was really struggling with anxiety.
Mhm.
That was before it was like popular to talk about. You didn't talk about that, man.
Right.
There was no box for that
Yeah.
back then. I know there wasn't that long ago, really, but a lot's changed in the good way.
Yeah.
About that. But if I would have just opened up about it,
Mhm.
I may not have struggled for a decade.
Yeah.
I may not have had to go down a road of, and so just sharing that with coaches and me being vulnerable first, hey, I'll do it first.
Mhm.
And I say, then you got to take that approach with your team. Again, you can there's a difference between being honest and being transparent. There's some things you probably need to tell 15 to 18-year-olds.
True.
But you can be honest with them.
Yeah.
And you can go first. And there's a simple little unbelievable culture building, team building exercise that would take just a few minutes. You can break your team up into groups and do this, but it's just called the 3 H's. I promise you, if you'll do this, you will be amazed at what happens. It's called hero, hardship, and highlight. Break them up into small groups. You got a smaller team. You can do it with the whole team together, but you go first as a coach. Hey man, who's your hero? What's a highlight in your life? And what's a hardship? We did this with a team the other day, and a kid opened up that his mom had breast cancer. And no one on the team knew.
Yeah.
The coach had no idea that the
Yeah.
kid had really been struggling. And all it took was just a moment, taking 30 minutes out of a day to open up. And now, guess what? That team is more connected. They're closer to each other. And when you start forming great connection and you get close, that's when the commitment starts.
Yeah.
And that is just that simple. It's 3 H's. It's not hard.
True. And that's awesome. Guys, as you're watching this show, I want you to see that for every question that you have as a coach, this guy's got the answer. And at least he's got a system and a thing that can help you get there. And every coach out there knows you got to have that system. You got to have that program. You got to have that feeling. But I'm going to put you on the spot here talking about anxiety. When you were playing, and I don't know the answer to this, when you were playing college basketball, did you feel anxiety while you were playing?
Brian, it was so bad. I will never forget. And I got to play a lot as a freshman and sophomore. I played a decent amount. Some as a junior. Then by a senior, man, I was off the rails completely. But I remember being a sophomore, we were playing at Stanford in the GSE tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And the anxiety was so bad. I was sitting on the bench having a panic attack. I told our trainer at the time, hey, I got to go to the locker room. I think I'm about to pass out. Well, as I go to the locker room, coach is trying to sub me in. And I'm in the locker room with a panic attack.
Yeah.
And it had gotten so debilitating
Right.
that I didn't tell anybody. And nobody really knew.
Right.
But it was so bad, that I remember being in Florida, the year I spent in Florida, and I woke up around 2 a.m. with just horrible anxiety and panic. And I prayed, I said, God, if you're not going to take this from me, just take me.
Yeah.
I didn't really contemplate, taking my life.
Right.
But I told God, hey man, if this isn't going to go, then you just got to take me. And I realized through a lot of healing and talking with people, I was just slowly trying to kill myself through alcohol. It almost worked.
Yeah.
November 5th, 2019, I almost did. And that was how I was going to just take care of the issue.
Yeah.
Because I was going to drink so much because I could get enough drinks in me. Whatever part of my brain would kind of shut off or I wouldn't be anxious. But then, you wake up hungover. Then even worse, because now, like you said, we're fasting because we're poor.
Right.
So now you have an empty stomach. You got a headache.
Right.
Not even more anxious. And the only fix was more alcohol,
More drink. Yeah.
more drinks. But I was good at coaching. So I think, this is what I tell coaches, man, you got to get to know your assistants.
Yeah.
I think because I was a decent coach, I think some things were overlooked.
Right. And that's kind of what I was getting.
That's not the blame
Yeah.
from anybody. I was really good at hiding it.
Yeah.
But man, you got to get to know your assistants, man, because again, those are your culture carriers, man.
Yeah.
You got to get to know.
Well, who do the
them.
players talk to?
Exactly.
I mean, who has that relationship really?
Exactly.
No, because I can think back and I will say, I played college baseball
1900s.
Yeah, in the 1900s. But it was like, I had a coach one time look at me and say, man, you need to smoke weed. And I'm like, no, probably not. But he was trying to tell me to chill, relax the way he was. That's only, I guess, culture he had. But as I look back and as I've coached and I've seen hundreds of players come through, it's like the ones that sometimes can fake it, like you as a coach, like you do well enough, or you make the shots when the game's on the line, or you get the hit, or you make the tackle, or you score the touchdown, whatever the sport may be. But sometimes those kids are dealing with stuff too, right? And they don't have that because it's not starting from the top, as you've said a few times in this show. The kids and the impact, and I'm still going back to the stadium of a football stadium, and I'm sitting there going, oh man, you know, I heard Bobby Bowden, the coach at Florida State years ago, say, when I get to heaven, God's not going to judge me on my wins and losses. He's going to judge me on the impact I had on these guys. And then he apologized at that event, church that we were at, for cussing, or something, but he took ownership in it, right? What does ownership mean? What does that mean as far as this system that you guys have?
Yeah, let me back up just real quick. Something you said, because my drinking and driving record was actually good. I only got like busted twice. But I tell everybody, one of the worst things in the world that can happen to you is you fake it and make it, so to speak. And I learned I wasn't getting away with it. I thought I was, but I wasn't. I was just drifting further and further and further. And no one just wakes up one day and says, man, I'm going to throw my whole life away. But what you do is you make 1,000 you make 1,000 decisions in the wrong direction. And then all of a sudden you're in a place where, man, you need a lot of help. So one of the worst things in the world that can happen to you is you think you get and you don't. So if you're listening to this right now and something's hitting you, whether it's pornography, it's drinking, whatever it is, and you haven't gotten caught yet. Right. Problem is your heart's been caught. Yes. And the enemy, he comes to only do one of three things: steal, kill, and destroy. That's it. That is his mission. You want to talk the 4 V's? That's his vision for your life. Right. His mission for your life is to steal, kill, and destroy. Right. And it won't happen all at once, slowly. Good news is you can reach out to somebody, you can talk to somebody, and Jesus also has his vision, mission plan. He's to give you an abundant life. Amen. So just kind of address when you say, man, you think you get away with it, you just don't. But yeah, taking ownership, man. I think that's what coaches want players to do, is to take ownership. And so every coach will say this, that the best teams are player-led teams. The problem is we don't teach players how to lead. So when you get really clear with his vision, your values, your voice, and your vehicle, you're giving ownership. You're giving, we say, like handles, something that's tangible for them to grab onto and take ownership of. Because when the team becomes really good is when the kids really take ownership of being disciplined. They take ownership of being humble. The same way you want to take ownership of your offense, your defense, special teams, whatever. And they start taking ownership of this culture. Yeah. And then they're picking up trash at school. They're holding doors open for girls at school, not just to get a date, but to, be nice. They're on time. So what would it be like, if Matt, one of your boys came and said, hey, Dad, coach told me we got to be this one. We got to be at school on time. Like, we got to leave. Yeah. All of a sudden now the kid is influencing the parents. Yep. We got to be on time. Like, coach says, I got to be on time everywhere I go. Yep. Like, and I know not everybody likes it, but it's just true. Like, as the athletes go over school, so goes the school. Yeah. If the athletes in the school start leading by example, they start picking up trash, they start doing little things, they start being disciplined. We've worked with a few different schools. There's been less fights. The school have gotten more connected, because athletes and coaches have started leading and showing the way. And they started, as you said, taking ownership of this. And it really, our heart is really to help coaches, help athletes develop their character, help them become leaders and stuff. But our heart is to see schools and communities transform. That's the heart. Yes. This is our entryway. Yes. This is doing it. Yes. And I'm glad you said that, because that's where I was in my mind. It's like, relate sports and life and marriage and fatherhood and everything I do basically to what you're explaining right now, right? You're just giving those guys a platform, because I like what you said about you haven't been caught yet. And there's things that I say that all the time when I'm doing the show or talking, and it's like, that thing you're thinking about right now, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And that's what's going to show up. It's going to become evident. People know. The players that played for me at a certain point, and then certain players that played, if you ask them who I was, they may tell you 2 different people. I'm not proud of that, but that's what I was shown. I was just doing what this coach did, or he might make the joke about that, having sex before you're married, or, man, did you see that girl come in, or so-and-so, or something? And it's like, okay, fine. All right. We're all guys. We see that. We are attracted to it. God designed us that way for a reason. But ultimately, it's like every word, every step, everything. It's hard. I'm going to say it used to be harder, because like BC, you said before COVID, after COVID. But what has been the biggest change that you've seen as far as the communities and things? You've seen schools change and communities change. The words that jump out to me right here for that,
I remember hearing the first baseball coach I heard say, "I'm a transformational coach, not a transitional coach." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean? Do y'all win more games than other teams?" Like, intrigued. And then I think about when John Maxwell says, in his leadership Bible, just read the leadership part. Do you guys mandate that the school is like, because it can be difficult sometimes. My 10-year-old came home the other day and was upset about the way the teacher said something about the beginning of time. And he's like, "Dad, that's not what the Bible said." I said, "I'm glad you heard that. And I'm glad it bothered you. But you got to understand that not everybody's going to believe like we believe. Not everybody's going to think faith, family, fitness, freedom. They may just say freedom. Well, you got to do those to get to this, like your system. But ultimately, how do you make that clear to guys? How do you say, okay, you may not be walking with God right now. You may not be 100% in your faith. You may be over here, but do you guys work with those programs as well?"
Yeah, so we were very intentional when we started the 501c3 that we're not a faith-based organization
Right.
because we don't. I mean, our heart was to get into public schools. And we didn't want anything to be a hurdle there.
Right.
There with the app, there is a faith-based perspective that for guys who want that can turn that on. But our goal was to add value to everybody,
Yes.
no matter where you're at. Because
Yes.
if you'll start, I mean, it's a very similar approach to John Max.
Yeah.
If you'll start to add value to someone's life, just watch what happens. And we call it like pre-conversion discipleship.
Mhm.
There's actually a term, for that. Like, we're adding value to your life. Do I ultimately want you to meet Jesus? Absolutely. That's the number one goal.
Mhm.
But if I just go to a coach who may be far from God or this person's far from God and, "Hey man, you better turn and burn, like, you're on your way to hell." If someone would have told me that back in like 2018, I said, "I think you're on the way to hell, buddy."
Yeah.
Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're the one who,
Yeah.
I had no,
Right.
that would have not have landed at all.
Right.
Started walking alongside me and wife and just having conversations. There was no push towards Jesus. He just was trying to add value to my life,
Mhm.
and he was.
Yeah.
And so then when my life was a wreck, literally and figuratively,
Mhm.
he was there.
Mhm.
And then guess what? He starts having these conversations. We start going through this process, and then the rest is kind of history. And that's what we want to do for coaches, because there's going to come a time, add value to people's life. There's going to come a time when they hit rock bottom, whatever that is.
Mhm.
I always say, for people that are struggling, I desperately hope that you don't hit rock bottom the way I do. But I do pray for you every day that you'll come to the end of yourself. And for most people, that's one and the same.
Yeah.
The end of their self is rock bottom. And then when you're there, I want to be the first person you call.
Yeah.
But you're not just going to call somebody random.
Of course.
And I think that's what's so great about what you and Courtney do. You're where a lot of times the church can't go to have, for right or for wrong or for whatever, just perception.
Yeah.
But when you walk into a space, man, and you've added value to their life,
Mhm.
and then when something happens, whether it's a divorce, it's rock bottom, whatever it is,
Yeah.
they call you.
Yeah.
They call the church. They call Brian.
You're right. Right.
And then you're gonna start walking alongside them and get them in church,
Mhm.
and get them in a local body and
Right.
stuff. But yeah, that's what we exist for.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to a guy who's, we'll call him a federal agent, if you will. And he said, the young guys are calling me anyway. I better be on point. You know what I mean? And when I first started talking to him, this is a guy at the gym, and we're talking and we're hanging out, and it's like the things that he's able to do to influence, and he's in church, and he and I have conversations that he didn't have with his team, right? But I'm praying that translates, right? And reaches them. So I'm excited about you guys and what y'all do, because this wasn't around back 10 years ago. Really? I mean, when I came home the other day and I told Courtney about a character coach, she's like, "A who?" We could have definitely used that when I was playing at UAH. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, because the head coach has 20 different things to do in a day. And then they get to go home to whoever their family is, right? And then it's like, but character coaches and things, when did that come about?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably at the highest level, like the professional level, there's always been, for a long time, there's always been that. But really,
Well, we called them psychiatrists.
yes, yeah, exactly.
We called them head doctors.
Yeah. So I think it's over the last probably decade or so, it's started to trickle down all the way, to high school.
Yeah.
And I think credit to coaches and administrations, like, they recognize the importance of it now. To have these kind of character coaches, people in your program that, man, they're coaching the person. And that's
Right.
what we tell coaches, like, hey, coach the person, not the player.
There you go.
You spend way too much time coaching the player.
Mhm.
I don't have time coaching the person.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's people that execute anything. Whatever your offensive system is, your defensive system, what is people that are executing it.
Right.
So you're not coaching people, and you're just coaching the players, man. You're losing out on a whole lot. So that's what we really help coaches do. But yeah, I think the role of the character coach, the role of having people help you with culture. There's a lot of people in this space now, which is awesome. Coaches need it. And I think it's starting to get more and more saturated in high school, which is awesome. And where it really needs to get is middle school
Yes.
as well. I mean, you got kids that are doing that. I mean, that we talked about last night at church, man. Just try being a junior high parent. Try being a junior high coach.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, So if we can start influencing values and vision and all these things with middle school kids, by the time they get to high school, they get to college. Because honestly, I think it's 93 to 94% of people that play high school sports don't play college.
Believe that. Yeah. For baseball.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then I think it's less than like 2% of college athletes go play professional.
Right.
So the ball's going to stop bouncing for you at some point.
And being a professional doesn't always mean you make money. But
Exactly.
as you grow and as you develop, you guys in Season Builder, y'all have coaches, y'all have mentors, y'all have people that you lean on, right? I mean, you're not exclusive to this either, are you?
No. So we have a board like that, one has to. We have guys in our lives. One of the guys who mentors me is Chris.
Yeah.
He didn't know a whole lot of sports.
Right.
He loves sports, but he wasn't a coach or anything like that.
Right.
But he's a mentor, man. He's someone that I can be open with, I can share with. He doesn't give a rip about Season Builder. He doesn't give a rip about.
When you say coach the person, not the player, I've never heard that. Okay, I just had never, I think about it, well, how's that kid doing? How's this? But I've always been the coach, and here's my confession time for you. I'm like, man, if he could get a hit here, if he could strike that hitter out, if he could get this, he's going to get that confidence that he needs. He has to, but he had to perform to get it.
Yeah.
Because that was for me. That's kind of how I was designed, if you will. At a very early age, I can remember I don't remember how old I was, but I remember hitting my first home run. It was a grand slam. And I remember that because of the reaction everybody had. And I thought, all I got to do is go out here and do that, but that became my identity. That became who Brian was. When I moved back to Alabama in 2013, I moved away in 2003, 4, whenever I moved out. And then 10 years later, I come back. People knew me as Brian, the baseball guy. It was baseball, Brian. He always took it more serious than everybody. He played harder than everybody. He did this, he did that. They weren't surprised that I have a travel team. They weren't surprised that I wasn't working a job because of who I am as a person. But it was like, that was my identity. Do you guys break into that?
Yeah. So I actually have a shameless plug. I have a book coming out in a couple of weeks talking about, it's called The Heart of Abba, but it's talking about how most of us just have the wrong approach to God. There's so much in our world, we're just identified so much by what we do. So if I met you the first time, you would immediately tell me my name is Brian, and then what do you do?
Right. Right.
And then so what we help coaches do is, man, this is where it's so important to get the values right, because you need to coach and correct through your values. So many people reward Brian hits the grand slam.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you need to reward that at this point. The kid who was humble,
the
kid who was together. Oftentimes you're rewarding that behavior, and people that's what we help coaches do is you got to coach and reward and correct through values. So then when the kid jumps off sides, it's not personal. It's, hey, you want discipline in that moment. Yeah. And now I'm coaching through a value. Hey, this is something we value.
Right.
And that's the point. Like, so many coaches coach emotional.
Yes.
Yeah, you want kids to play with emotion, but you don't want to be emotional. Well, same thing. You don't want to coach emotional. You want to coach with emotion.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And so I'm always saying, there's very strategic times to get a technical or to address something. But if every call you react like it is the worst call in the world,
right.
And then you say, hey, kids, y'all can't respond to refs, but you act like an absolute idiot after every call. Like,
Right.
what are you teaching them?
Right.
What do you, because they're not going to do what you say. They're going to do what you do.
You might want to say that again for a lot of coaches out there.
Yeah, they're not going to do what you say.
Right.
They're going to do what you do.
Yep.
And so if you lose your cool after everything that the ref does, just know this. High school refs aren't very good. And they're trying, okay? And I think more people should become refs and realize how hard it is.
Amen.
But just go ahead and go, hey, we're going to get some calls that aren't going to go away.
Sure.
And the same is true that you're going to get some calls that you probably shouldn't get.
Yeah.
And again, not that there's not a time to interject, but again, you're not coaching at your best when you're just coaching so emotional.
Right.
Because we know players aren't playing that way either.
Yeah.
They're playing emotional. And so that's the importance of really coaching and correcting through values. Able to reward through values and be able to reward kids for who they are. So they just did a study, Harvard did a study of like 4,000 recent graduates, and they all quit their job in the first year. old guys like you know, and my guys say, oh, this is the younger generation, man. It's so no hard work.
They're weak, soft.
But they go interview all these business managers and CEOs and stuff that were employing these people.
Right.
And they said, I don't get why they left. We have employee of the month. We did all the recognition. Like, I don't understand. He said, you never rewarded what they could produce. So now their identity, think about kids now. Their identity is so wrapped up in their performance and what we can do. So then when we approach God, when someone who comes from that kind of background starts trying to approach God, what do you think their perspective is going to be?
Right.
He wants them to perform. All this pressure and anxiety comes with performance. But being has to become before doing.
Yes.
So we're going to get a little deep theological here. So if you're listening to this, just hang on. But it says in the beginning, how the Bible opens up, it says in the beginning, God created. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So in the beginning, God is who? Created was what? The Bible tells you who God is before what he does.
Right.
And the same is true for us. We got to learn who we are and let who we are determine who we are.
I love that. And, I'm sitting here thinking I've had to have real jobs, I call them, in the past. And those people who showed up emotional at work, those people who, every facet of life. If Courtney loved me because, let's just use a silly example, I paid for dinner, or I got her this gift, or I performed this way for her, it makes it hard to keep up, doesn't it? But how does your wife know how lucky she is? Do we need to make that? We need to broadcast that today?
Yeah,
right?
I'm more so lucky I am. But you're absolutely right. Yeah. So something is worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So you need to know, everybody listening needs to know that you are the Son of God.
Amen.
And so if you're tying your self-worth to what you can produce and to what someone else believes about you, just know whether you believe in God or not, that doesn't make it not true. That the creator of the universe valued you so much that he gave his best for you. That's how much you're worth. And let that, if you can start, because we tell coaches, man, how can you transfer belief? Because God believes in you. God believes in you. If you'll start from there, just start from that foundation, what that can produce, the freedom that can produce in you, ultimately it's not about wins and losses. Because like you said, man, in 5 years, no one knows who won the national championship. It's not about that. But if you'll start from that foundation and God believes in you, he's for you, he loves you, and let him tell you who you are. And you start getting the affirmations that I used to think were the silliest things in the world. Watch your belief change. And then watch how you coach your team. Watch how that changes. It's almost like wearing two different hats, I think, but it's really one hat. I love helping coaches with culture, adding value and doing all that. But the foundation of everything I'm doing is rooted in Christ. Ultimately, where I want to lead people to has a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that, if you want to talk about the biggest win in life, that is the biggest one.
Absolutely. And that are the wins and losses that count.
Yeah. And that's what counts, man. And the battle's already been won. He's paid for it. You're good. And when you can start,
I like that one.
Yeah, Jesus won.
He won.
Yeah, he won. And so I'm just telling you can start from there, man. It puts everything else in perspective. And so like the book I was talking about, that will come out in a couple of weeks is talking about just our approach to God and how it's just so backwards, and how we see him as just distant and angry and upset with us but really, it's called the heart of Abba, the pursuing Father. So the last thing I'll say, but there's something in the Bible called the law of first mention. So when something's mentioned first in the Bible, it's usually in the purest form. So the first sin, so to speak, in the Bible was when Adam and Eve ate the fruit. Okay. So if that's the first sin, then what was God's response to the first sin? He pursued it. He wasn't angry. He wasn't mad. He pursued it, and he's still pursuing you. Because Hebrews says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if that was his response to the first sin, his response to your first sin and to your millionth one is to pursue you. And you just need to know that you have a heavenly Father who's pursuing you. And I promise you, if you can just get that right, it will totally transform your whole life. And everything you do, your relationships, all of it will totally transform that. Our website, theseasonbuilder.org. You can go find everything that you would need on there. There's a culture evaluation call. You can schedule with us. If you're just looking to start somewhere. Yeah. My number is 256-503. And here's the thing. We're a nonprofit. So people ask us, how's the business going? We're not a business. Right. We're a nonprofit. And so there's a value and there is a cost to what we do. But we're not going to let money be an obstacle. So if you can't pay that, That's okay. It's not going to stop us from working with you. We just say, hey, man, pay what you can. And then if there is a day where you do have to walk on,
Yeah.
but it's a pay what you can model. Now, if you do have the money to pay for it, great.
Everybody's got to eat. Remember,
Everybody's
we're not
gotta eat.
fasting because we're going
everybody's
fast when we
gotta
want to.
Everybody's got to eat, but even if you only have $1,
Right.
just put $1 in.
Yeah.
We'll set up very intentionally. We're funded by generous investors who believe in what we're doing.
Amen.
We're not trying to make money off high school coaches. We're not trying to make money off high school administration.
They're saying, thank God.
And so, again, our heart is just to serve you,
Yeah.
to work with you. Like, what we're all about is we're Christ-centered and others-focused.
There we
That's
go.
our mission.
Right.
We're Christ-centered and others-focused.
Right.
We just want to serve. We've known from being in a lot of different arenas of life, being in sports, that if you'll get a vision, if you'll get some values, you'll get that voice and you'll get that vehicle, you can totally transform your program. But ultimately, and you know this to be true, and the coaches at Harpsel, they totally transform the community.
Mm-hmm.
Totally transform the community.
Yep.
I don't think coaches all the time realize how many eyes are watching. If you only knew
Yeah.
how many, you'd take this a little more serious. So let this kind of be maybe the kick in the rear.
There you go.
that you need.
Yeah. Yeah. We all need that. The website is done well. And I was able to, me being the old man here, I was still able to open it and find out what I needed and see who's on the team, see a little bit about what you guys do, see some, social media stuff where it's out there. But ultimately, working in your community, that's what I love about this. This is where you're from. This is basically where you've lived your whole life, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you've been in this North Alabama area, high school,
Spent years
college.
in Florida, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And you're here to do that for your community. And to me, bro, because there's been times that I'm like, oh, we need to do this out here and we need to reach out to that and this and this. And I'm like, wait, what about those people I pass every single day? They've got the same stuff I'm dealing with. And that's what I'm excited about with you guys' program, because you're in person, you're there and you're shaking hands and hugging them and loving on them and telling them, hey, I've been there. So that's awesome. And as a coach, I'm a little frustrated right now that I didn't know about this when I had the program, because you guys, I mean, I would have found somebody that in the organization, hey, we need to pay these guys to get them in here and they got to do this because I need it. And I'm the one that's running all these kids, we needed that, but it's here now and it's available and everybody has $1. I don't want you working with 100 guys for $1. I want you to be able to eat and take care of your family and Taylor to live. But at the end of the day, man, kingdom work. And that's what you said, that one of the first things when we had lunch, it's all about kingdom work. It's all about there because this is all temporary, right? That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, this is just Taylor and I feel like, and everybody who's involved with this, so man, this is the spot in the kingdom that God has us right now.
Amen.
And so,
Amen. And I love it. I love it. You could get a job coaching right now, probably go out and go coach again and live that life and do that. But that's not where God put you. You being obedient, I want to thank you for doing what you do. And guys, if you're out there, if you see somebody in Season Builder, go up to your preacher at church next Sunday, and instead of telling him something that was wrong, tell him you're praying for him. Tell him that you care about it. Those guys need to hear that too. So as we wrap up here, man, I just go to seasonbuilder.org, reach out to Taylor, reach out to Spence, get in touch with these guys, find out what they can do for you, find out what they can do for your program. Because I guarantee you that if you get on the phone call with them, you will not be the same. I went to lunch with this guy the other day. I've seen you 50 times at the gym, 50 times at church, sitting down for a 1-hour lunch. And even this show, you guys who watch the show know this one's a long one. This one's longer than most of them because this is where my heart is. It's reaching those people.
I want to say thank you. Told you this at lunch the other day, man. It's humbling to watch what you and Courtney are doing.
Well, thank you.
How you're raising your kids, what you're doing, and being obedient, because it's not easy. It takes work, it takes sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the last thing I'll say. Is probably the most discouraging thing I'll say is none of this is easy.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I will say, if you're comfortable right now, I don't know how close you're walking with God. He takes you to places it's not comfortable. I read the Bible and I don't see a lot of comfort. You just don't.
Right.
Not that you don't want to bless you and he's for you, all those things are true too.
Mm-hmm.
There's also at the same, talking kind of about both sides of my mouth. Same time, I've never had more fun in my entire life.
Yeah.
Things difficult sometimes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes. We hear a lot of no's. You don't get a lot of response. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I've never had more center of God's will.
Right.
So you want to live a fun life. You want to live an exciting life. Man, just follow Jesus. It's the most exciting thing you can do.
I don't think you could say it any better than that, brother. Guys, thank you for watching the show. If you have a question, reach out to me. If you forgot the website, you don't want to go back, shoot me a message. I'll get you in touch with Spencer. Comment, share this post. I know there's a lot of athletes that watch the show. I know there's a lot of coaches that we reach. Guys, if you don't have a culture, you do, and you need to get it on the right track. Thank you for watching Podcast on Wheels.